Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is bring about conversations of a psychological, mental health, emotional health, and coaching related paradigm. We do this as often as we can, usually several times per week, although my schedule's been a little wonky as of late, but hopefully we pick back up a little bit here. Signs that anxiety is ruling your relationship is basically the concept of today's audio. And so if you are dealing with anxiety, which is the persistence that you need to be perfect in order to be loved, that's the root cause of all anxiety, is approval seeking or love seeking through behavior. And if that's something you're dealing with, there are signs that your relationships are affected by it. A couple things to look at there is avoiding conflict. So either you avoid conflict by agreeing to do things that you normally wouldn't, or agreeing to or staying silent in situations where you would normally speak up. Also, you may actually, as I grab my phone, we'll be back in two shakes of a lamb's tail right after this. But again, avoiding conflict or avoiding any sort of conversation that's going to lead you to a conflict may be something that you're in the middle of. Also, the other thing, too, is overgiving. That could be overgiving financially, overgiving emotionally, not stating your needs or explaining your needs portfolio to people in your life that matter to you. You may even agree to things that you normally wouldn't, just to make people happy in order to try and earn their love, with the thought that you could remind them of all the sacrifices you made for them later and that they will become more compliant to you. You may avoid the idea that talking about things that make you uncomfortable or overextend yourself financially or emotionally. You may not make time for self-care. And the idea that someone may not like you because you've set boundaries is another factor. Many times we're conditioned to believe that boundaries are a bad thing, especially if we come from a family dynamic or previous relationship dynamic where saying no is seen as a limiting thing, where ultimately you're not good to yourself if you're saying no, or something ultimately becomes at the end of your day in a good way, where you almost believe that you have to be agreeable to receive love or to receive value. And when people tie love and value together, it becomes extremely difficult. You're a valuable person even if someone doesn't like you. But if that's not your core belief system, ultimately people can manipulate that in you and use that to their advantage, especially if they know that they can gaslight you into the belief that you are supposed to be a certain way for their benefit. And that becomes a very unhealthy and ultimately, you know, dependent thing. In other words, when your sense of approval for yourself as a person is tied to being helpful and or someone else's approval constantly, not to say that we shouldn't want people to like us or value us, but that has to be a part of what we see as a reason that we're a good person or a healthy person. But when it's our entire identity is tied to that, then that becomes problematic, because people can and often do manipulate our desire to be liked, our desire to be loved, our desire to be useful or considered attractive or considered smart or considered worthy of attention, as a way that they can ultimately lead us in the direction of being more amenable to the things that they want us to do. And ultimately that becomes problematic for a number of reasons, and leads to emotional and mental imbalance, and that ultimately leads in directions of unhealthy relationships in general. So hopefully this is helpful. I also encourage you to realize that it's a life journey thing, so you're not going to figure out how to be in balance in your relationships immediately, and that if anxiety is fueling some relationships, but not all of them, you may not have a clear view of yourself enough to protect yourself properly, and that becomes super valuable in a good way, to know that it doesn't have to affect every relationship for it to be an issue that needs your attention or for you to address it. So hopefully this is helpful. I encourage you to keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.